pay that guy. So I turned in and go in there, and I paid him, and he looked at me like, really? You remember?
You came back?
You know?
They don't normally come back.
He gives me a handful of like fortune cookies in there, and every time I've been there since, he loads me up with so much he's got to squash down the top of those little styrofoam things like you see in the Chinese room. He's a really sweet man, immigrant from China, and the kind of people that we say, hey, come to America. And then we just screw this guy, and he hung on, and finally we went out of business. I went by there the other day, and all the stuff's just, all the heating table is all gone and everything like that. It just says, sorry, we couldn't hang on. So it's all kinds of them.
Thanks, Jennifer. Love you guys. I really appreciate your perspective on the world today. Thank you, Jennifer.
Out of her accounts. So she says, while we have lost a lot of restaurants and businesses around here due to the shutdowns, the problem we seem to be having right now is the struggle to keep doors open due to another issue, finding the employees to actually work these jobs, as you were mentioning. In speaking with my boss for a few moments this morning, I was choking back tears at the sadness and pain in her face. This is a woman in her 70s who should be retired and traveling around the country enjoying her golden years that she put into this business and reaping the rewards. Instead, she is near tears, wondering if we are going to make it another week because what COVID didn't take away from her, not having staff to keep the doors open and the businesses running, is. This is my job and income, but it isn't me I care about. I'll be fine. This is her life, and all of her retirement money she saved that she had to put back into the business to keep doors open, and this is what's been happening. These are tough people. They thought it was going to be a month, maybe 2 months, so they put all their money into it that should have been their nest egg.
Right.
And they kept the restaurant alive as long as they want. So she goes, even through all of that, she feels terrible because she knows that if she goes under, it is those who work for her that are out of the jobs we need. There are many restaurants around us that are dealing with this right now. Everyone wants the bars and restaurants open. The customers are there and are willing to come out, but the employees are missing in action. How do you fix that?
Yeah.
Good question. I believe that Erica,
she's here.
Are you, Erica? You're from Michigan, right? Okay, she's
on a bit of a lag, so we won't see that answer in a few seconds.
We're time lag. So I believe she's from Michigan.
No, it's there's so many levels to it, right? Right, and that's the thing that nobody planned for. I mean, if you couldn't have done it any better if you were the rich and powerful to shut this down like this. It's helping them and hurting everyone that's on the lower end.
Does cancel culture exist?
It's incredible to me that anyone would deny that it exists when the evidence is so overwhelming for it. I've been in conversations with people about this online, and there's a couple of threads online which have hundreds and hundreds of examples of people who've lost their jobs for something they've said at work or something that's of course it exists. I mean, quite obviously. I think the main complaint of saying, well, no one's been cancelled. Again, that's someone taking a metaphor literally. No one's saying that anyone is literally being cancelled. Cancel culture is a shorthand metaphor for a method whereby when you hear something that offends you or upsets you, typically something quite innocuous or relatively inconsequential. In other words, part of cancel culture is an overreaction, right? So you go in all guns blazing and you don't stop until that person has lost everything, their livelihood, their job, their reputation. Absolutely, it's all got to go because there can be no redemption, there can be no forgiveness. And this happens again and again, and the examples of it are so numerous that it is impossible to deny with a straight face that it doesn't exist, and yet people do. It's the same reason. I mean, people hate to say it again, but writers for The Guardian will continually say cancel culture doesn't exist because they are its chief practitioners. Remember, this is the publication that when Suzanne Moore wrote that article, which they all disliked, most of the staff wrote a letter of complaint to try and get her booted out. And then it's the same people who will say that cancel culture doesn't exist. Well, this is hardly surprising because the culture war is largely engineered and motored by people like the people who work at The Guardian. It's their culture war. This is the identitarian left's culture war. But they are the same people who will say the culture war is a right-wing myth. But they're the antagonists. It's nuts.
But J.K. Rowling said loads of stuff. She hasn't been cancelled. Why is she not being cancelled?
Well, you know the answer to that, Chris. She's a billionaire, and as we all know, cancel culture overwhelmingly affects poorer people.
Hvor meget er din bil værd? Indtast din bils detaljer online og modtag den endelige salgspris. Med salg på min kontaktløse afleveringsaftale. Besøg os nu på www.vikøberallebiler.dk.
As those of you who've been following the channel for a little while might know, I study Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic at the University of Cambridge, often shortened to ASNAC, which no one's ever heard of and you have to repeat 5 times over the loud music in the club, but actually this is what we look like in clubs. But anyway, ASNAC is a great little course. It's a really nice small community. We study the early Middle Ages, we look at languages, we look at literature, we look at the history and archaeology and manuscripts and that kind of thing. Now, it's a really small course, there's only 11 people in my year, but as the Crossbridges and Camfesses will show you, we're quite well known out and about around Cambridge. We just started up a football team, we go and watch films together, every Friday night we get together in the pub, and it's just a lovely small community that really gets on really well together. Which is why I was really dismayed to see that this morning someone decided to write an article entitled, "The University of Cambridge must renounce the use of the term ASNAC." Before I continue, there are a few things that I'd just like to specify. Now, first of all, I'm speaking here on my own behalf. I'm not speaking